Hello and welcome. Welcome. Very warm welcome. We've got some new people here today, which is lovely. Hello. My name's John. I'm one of the Academy coaches. Thursday live stream. I'm welcoming Connor as well today. Connor's one of the other coaches at the Academy. I thought for a change, I always look forward to these live streams, but I'm always a little bit nervous because it's like me chatting hello, Connor. I've got three versions of me on my screen, so I'm going to need to shut one of my screens down. But I'm always a bit nervous of these because you never quite know what you're going to face into on a live stream. And it's actually really nice having Connor here today. So say hello, Connor.
Hello. Just realised my mic was muted. I did say hello the first time I popped on camera.
Did you? Cool. So it's a rare treat for everyone today. They got both of us on the call. Welcome, Gail. Welcome, Wayne. Got some regulars as well, which is lovely to see people coming back. Today, so I'm always a bit nervous because we come into these deliberately. Just for anybody who's brand new to this, you'll see either myself or Connor on a live stream when we publicise them in the events calendar. We don't prep these, we don't structure it. It's not formal training. Good afternoon, Gail, for us, and probably good morning for you. Because we want to explore, and we want to explore topics that are of interest to you. And sometimes you kind of come into them and you're not quite sure what we're going to do on the day. But this is my fault today, so you can blame me, Connor. I sat on the watch party on Monday, and we went through stuff like Teams and Power Automate, how those two glue together really nicely. And in my head, I'm thinking really quite a lot about the Step Up Challenge. So again, for anybody who's not familiar with the language, we have courses, and they're bite-sized learning courses for different services in Microsoft 365. You can get them if you're a Platinum subscriber, but we have beginner level for Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, and they're called Jump Starts. What we try and do is we try and take you up the levels to get confidence and skills whilst building a solution. So we have the step ups as well. You've just done one, haven't you, Connor?
Yes, so I've just finished the Power Up Step Up Challenge, which is now available in the Academy. I think the next step for me is after the workshop at the end of the month, I'll be moving on to the Power Ups Pathfinder, which really kind of finalises a lot of the learning that you'll need to really start creating apps for yourself in Power Apps.
Yeah, I mean, they're designed like as a way to take people from completely not really getting the concepts to being able to build solutions, but getting the skills they need along the way. So the reason I mentioned that is that I was thinking about my Power Automate step up, which is it's designed and built. And there was a thing on the watch party that got me thinking. So the step up, the next level on Power Automate, I'm going to be very much talking about approvals and like configuring approvals, which is a really strong and valuable use case for loads and loads of people with Power Automate. And if you're interested in approvals and how you get data signed off, that's probably a challenge for you. But the watch party on Monday, she spoke about adaptive cards, and I was like, well, and I know an approval is an adaptive card, but as a piece of tech in Microsoft, it got me curious as to like, well, why do I reach for one? And so I thought, well, I'm going to go for that with a live stream. And it's nicer to be able to talk to you and get someone else's opinion live, because I came out, didn't I? And I was like, well, as a thing, an adaptive card, I get the concept. An approval, I can send something to somebody, they can go yes or no, and I get that back into the context of Power Automate. But have you used adaptive cards much? Like, what's the context for you?
I mean, I've not personally used them in a real use case. I've kind of explored them a little bit and seen some of the use cases that people have used. I'm saying used multiple times in a sentence gets confusing. So yeah, I've explored as such the use cases of them and seen how people are setting them up to use them. I think, I mean, again, we spoke about this the other day, me and you, John, privately, about, because I think you had a little bit of confusion over why would you, like, say, jump to an adaptive card
Yeah, why do I need one?
to
I've got approvals. I can configure the heck out of approvals, and I'm going to teach people that. You can put like what you want the approval to be. So not just yes, no, approve, decline. It can be I want, someone can respond on an approval and say, I want to say yes, but at the level of 15%, or I want to give someone a blue badge, not a yellow badge. So there's configuration you can do.
I think one of the big perks of using an adaptive card is it's for anyone that's used kind of Power Apps, you're sort of given similar sort of controls, like the sort of controls that you would see on a form. So, for example, you could provide a form-like experience with an adaptive card and have, for example, drop-down boxes. You could have text input boxes. You could have a number of different controls, which using obviously the JSON that you saw on Monday for anyone that attended the watch party, you basically being able to get a response back from that, in which you can then surface that data, surface the information that people have put in inside of Power Automate.
Okay, so like quite a flexible. So there's the thing, it's quite a flexible interface. And if I extend that a little bit, that means that in Power Automate, I can push out information from wherever or data flexibly, get a flexible response, deal with it in Power Automate or Power Apps flexibly. But I think if I understand the use case for adaptive cards, I can also chain these things together. So I could make a process, couldn't I? I mean, I could do that with approvals, but I could make quite a nice human, semi-automated, semi-interactive process with adaptive cards. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think the important thing to obviously remember is that adaptive cards are the main use case for them is obviously to be able to have quick responses to things in things like Teams and through emails and stuff like that. So yes, I think because a lot. My next question, which I would probably be asking myself if I didn't know the answer, would be why wouldn't I just jump to a Microsoft Form, for example? But like I say, it's that kind of quick interactive way to get something to happen. So for example, you can publish these adaptive cards into Teams channels and Teams chats. You can send them through emails without having them to have them click on a link to go to a form and do essentially the same thing. But essentially, it's very similar type of experience or interactivity that you kind of get with forms that you could implement into adaptive cards. I mean,
Yeah.
I've not gone to the extent of seeing what you can really kind of put in them. I just know that you can do things like radio buttons and drop down controls, text input boxes and all that. And there is, whilst you're talking, I will try and dish out some documentation, because there is something that somebody posted, and it basically has all of the JSON expression that you need to implement all of the different controls that you can use inside of adaptive cards and how to kind of set them up. So I'll try and dish that out, and then maybe
that'd be cool.
we can use that to have a play with one.
Okay, well, you've said two things there to me that sort of, so spoiler alert, we are going to like play around with them today, show some examples. I've got a few ideas in mind as to where I might go, and I'm going to share with you a bit of like my thought process around this. But yeah, so it's instantaneous interaction. I don't have to click a link, which is nice. It's like, yeah, limit link clicks, limit button clicks is a good thing when you want to get reliable user feedback. It's potentially multi-time, so I can do it more than once in the flow of an activity to different people, which is cool. So I can gather data. Yeah, you said, see, the initial reason I don't think I've ever used them is because I come at this as no code mindset, very much low code. And when people say JSON to me, I shiver. And I don't know, I've said this in the intro to this session. I don't know why. JSON, like, and tell me if this is wrong. JSON is really just a way of formatting information so that different screens, different interfaces can read it and present it reliably, a bit like XML, but it's different, it's more portable. Is that right? Is that how you describe it?
So yeah, I mean, to me, JSON, for the use cases that I've used JSON for, JSON is essentially just a way of defining a kind of table structure, if you like.
Okay.
You're table in a way that it's not kind of contained within a table. So you're basically providing values and then getting responses. And the way
I'll
that
go with that. Yeah.
the way that schema works is that you are saying that you have a value that you want, and then you're telling it what type of value that you expect to get from it, and that's what sits each side of the colon, that sits inside of that kind of JSON structure.
Okay. Yeah, cool. That for me, that's like, as I know you play around with this a lot more than I do, but that's always been the barrier to entry. And I want to prove to myself and to see anybody else. And by the way, I will do a little bit of a callback to say hello to everybody who's just joined us. Lots of people joined us now. And I'll do a bit of a sort of what this is all about. But just to share with you, I am going to try and show that it's not scary. But in chat, if you want to ask questions around this space, that'll help me and Connor like have conversations that can help you. So that's what the live stream's about, really, is trying to help you in a very informal fashion. But equally, you're watching Connor and myself learn in real time. So if that's at all interesting to you, that's what live streams are about. They're informal, they are free format. For information, and welcome to everybody who's just joined the stream, we are going to try and do these reliably and in a standardized format going forward. So Connor and I have had a chat. We were experimenting with Twitch, weren't we? And we were experimenting with YouTube. I think we've settled now that what we'll try and do is, for these free format live streams, because our goal is to give value out to the world, that's one thing. Equally, let the world know about us. YouTube is great. None of you chatting, interacting in the Teams chat here will be visible. So just to reassure you that. But it will be streamed on a Thursday to YouTube, probably this time going forwards through August and September. We'll see how that goes for you all. Give us your feedback. If that works for you, great. If you've got topics you'd like us to dig into, that's great. Tell us. You can use this chat. It stays open. You can go to our YouTube channel. That also has an open chat that you can use. So the only other thing I want to say is that by default, YouTube does create a recording, I think, Connor, doesn't it? It records our live streams.
Yeah, I think we have set it that way.
Yeah, so you'll be able to go back afterwards if we do something and you go, I really want to watch that. Then just to let you know, that's where you go. So we'll always say we're not recording it, which protects your privacy in the Teams call, but equally external. All right, so I get it. Thank you, Connor, for that link. That's awesome. I mean, this part might be a bit more dull for you, Connor, but what I was thinking I could do, I did a little bit of thinking up front. So that's all the admin I wanted to kind of share with people. But the why, I think we've sort of dug into a little bit, and I'd be really interested in any of the chats on YouTube or in Teams. If people use adaptive cards, what do you use them for? I'd love to know, because I'd love to build that why use case in my head. But
I was gonna ask the same question at some point today.
Yeah, it's like, and that's really valuable for us, isn't it? Because we can create our own echo chambers and like a really important use case, you and I. Because we chatted, didn't we? I was thinking of like a supply chain. So I could have a SharePoint data item created, a record, a row, or Dataverse, whatever, and that could trigger a Power Automate flow that then says, Connor, can you put your blurb into this for me? And all you have to do is enter the blurb into the adaptive card, right? And click done. Is that right? So yeah, I'll show you how to do that. Yeah, which could then come to me and say, hey, Connor's done his bit. Who do you want to pick for the next bit? And I just pick a name from a drop down, click. And all this is happening in Teams, isn't it? Or email. And then like the bit I really want to explore, we probably won't get to it today, I don't think we will, is I'd love to see if I can fire something to a third party that doesn't exist in our tenant who can give me a response. Hey, no problem, Dave. Enjoy yourself. Catch up later if you want to, because I'd like to explore that. I think like adaptive cards, apparently you can get them outside your tenant.
Well, yeah, you can embed them inside of emails.
Yes.
So it would be my assumption. I mean, I think you can pass in data to adaptive cards. So similarly to the way, obviously these are built in Power Automate, so similarly to the way that you would create dynamic content to use, you could essentially use dynamic content inside of an adaptive card.
Yes.
And pass in certain things. So yeah, you could share, for example, information from a SharePoint table, a SharePoint list, sorry, any data table or whichever data you want that exists in your environment. You should be able to share that via an adaptive card externally.
That'd be interesting. Yeah. So the use case I had was in a supply chain, for example. I might need to get an ID off a supplier, and if as part of my Power Automate flow, I sent them an email with an adaptive card where they put their system generated piece of data into it, that came back to me. I've saved a bit of effort. I'm sure there's way more efficient ways to do it, but I was just thinking there must be a use case where I have to go out, get a bit of data. It's probably no spoiler that I think it's possible. I've never done it. I'm going to explore it. I'd like to chat it through with you tomorrow. I think it requires a setting in the admin portal, actionable content. I think it is. We'll look at it tomorrow, but I think you've got to switch something on to let it happen.
So I'm just curious, have you actually built or tried to build an adaptive card yet? Is that something that you've done?
No, no, I genuinely haven't. So I was going to try an experiment, and I don't know whether you fancy this. It's no risk on you. The risk's all on me. The experiment is, I'm going to go, and we do this a lot, don't we? We ask each other for a bit of advice. Where would you start? But I'm going to go and try this. Like everybody talks about ChatGPT and AI and how wonderful it is. We use it to give us structured ideas. I'm going to have a go, basically. So that's what I think I'll do. Is I'll have a go and ask it what it would do, and then we'll have a look at it and see whether it makes sense in the real world, and then we'll have a go.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sound good? All right, cool. Well, let's do that then. Right. For those of you unfamiliar, let me just pull up OpenAI. So we have an OpenAI account, and it's within OpenAI that the thing called ChatGPT lives. Let me just share my screen. You can shout out, Connor, as you go through if you see stuff that's just stupid, or dip off camera, entirely up to you. Let me pull OpenAI. So just a thing, I'm going to share this for some people that have been asking about this today. I build in a developer tenant all the time just because it allows me to mess around with stuff and not break things. If you've ever done that, you might get into problems with the identity. Just a top tip that I'll share with everybody today. If you're really interested in this and you want to find out more, happy to do a little video on it. But I use the identities in Edge. Up here, you can see I've got all these different identities that I use. I'm currently using she's an admin. She looks very much like Helen Jones, but she's called Adele Vance. I don't know why I always use Adele. There are male identities, but I don't care. Adele's got everything I need. So use these profiles in Edge to separate you from your production world to muck around. That's what I do. So that's number one thing I just wanted to share. You do sometimes get unstuck when you first of all open up a profile. You do sometimes it still will think you're signed in as a previous identity. So like my live identity, just make sure you check up here and do your whole sign out if you are logged in as the wrong person. But that's that. So we got OpenAI. I'm going to log into this, but that's the site that we use. If you need it, there's the link, openai.com. I'm going to use it. Let's just pull up my screen. Let's see with a structured question what it gives me. Bear with me. I don't really like all the tabs that I've got on my desktop, Connor. They're a nightmare. Right, here we go. Right. So I've got a tab there, OpenAI. I'm going to go into ChatGPT and I'm going to start. So this is, I would do this to a human being. I'd say, have you ever built an adaptive card? What steps did you take? So I'm just going to ask ChatGPT. We often start with, you can use the act as prompt, but I don't need it here. So give me the steps to create a simple . So that's the first thing. Give me steps to create a simple adaptive card in Power Automate, which will ask for a piece of data from a person in Teams. So the more data you give it, the better, I think. And so give me the steps to create a simple adaptive card in Power Automate, which will ask for a piece of data from a person in Teams and return it to Power Automate. Let's have a look.
I think it's just quickly just important to say about how descriptive you're being in these. For example, yeah, like John's mentioned, the more you put in, the kind of better your response is going to be from the AI service. It's similar to the way that if I asked you all to draw a man on a bicycle, everybody would have a sort of different image because I've not been very descriptive. The color of the shirt would be different. The color of the bike would be different. The environment that they're riding on the road or the path or in the countryside would be different. So the more descriptive you can get with your ChatGPT prompts is going to give you better results. So if you, for example, say, John, give me a picture of a man on a bicycle, or give me a picture of a man wearing a blue shirt on a bicycle. He's got brown hair, blue eyes, and he's riding through a cornfield or something like that, then it's going to give you much better results than the kind of smaller prompts. So if you're using ChatGPT like we're doing to solve problems or learn some things, then yeah, be as descriptive as you can. And I don't think there is a character limit that you have in terms of your initial message. So yeah, be as descriptive as you can, and you'll get better results.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout, Connor. I mean, you noticed that I went a little bit sort of further than just a simple one, and just for hopefully for the benefit of anybody watching this, just to zoom in a little bit. That's the kind of prompt that I put in there. I'd probably go a bit deeper. I will try and remember, and if it call me to account if I don't show this clearly, I'll try and remember to zoom out. But yeah, so I created that. I think there's probably a principle at play here. If you've as in the chat, could you just give me an indication, please, as to whether you, yes, have used adaptive cards or no, you haven't? I'm just really interested in who's familiar with adaptive cards. We've got a nice little straw poll here. So either in the YouTube chat or in the Teams chat. Okay, cool. So we've got some no's and some yeses. That's cool. Cool. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom out a little bit before I start, and I'm going to share with you what I believe about this. So Connor and I have shared the belief that adaptive cards give you a flexible way to effectively create communication points between your colleagues, potentially external colleagues and people. So that's number one. So they're flexible points of communication, if that makes sense. Mostly what I've seen is they seem to work in teams. They work nicely in Teams. They also work really, really well in Outlook. What we probably don't all recognize is we are probably already using them. So just to go back to a point I made at the start, my belief is that if you've ever used an approval in Power Automate, which is effectively, it's just a step in Power Automate you configure that says, go to Connor, ask Connor for approval for this document. It comes back. My belief is that is effectively based on an adaptive card. It's wrapped for you.
Yeah, it's a predefined adaptive card that out of the box you can't change. There are custom options that you have that you can add. And again, that all that's doing behind the scenes is just going and changing that schema of the adaptive card.
Yeah.
For the person that's viewing it. Yeah.
So to my knowledge, then, the reason I would reach for an adaptive card is because I want a bit more flexibility in that interaction. As one of the people in the chat correctly says, sorry, we just got a slight problem with the spotlight. Let me just stop spotlighting Connor. Let's just stop that. And you should just get me in a moment. Let me just try and make that. I hope that's better for those of you who are struggling to see.
Yeah, I think it's just because you're not sharing your screen inside of Teams. It's part of your OBS.
Yeah, okay. And I'll make sure we try and share it as simply as possible when I get to it. My point was that the adaptive cards are the flexible way. You can just put information in places flexibly, or you can put and you can get. And I mean that in the human sense, not any coding sense. I can give information and I can receive information. The way that you deal with the flexibility, the language that does that, is this thing called JSON. For anybody who's never touched it, that's what this is doing, really. JSON is a way. What would you call it, Connor? Would you call it code? I don't. I sort of call it what would I call it? It's not a language.
JSON is a code format,
because
you even though JSON can be wrapped in many different languages, it's essentially still typed out inside of any of your code files. So actually, so what I mean by that is JSON can be, for example, it could be wrapped in C#. JSON can also be wrapped in Python. It can be wrapped in many different languages. It's just an easy way to access information that's coming from an API. So yeah, I'm not sure if that makes sense what I've just said, or
yeah, it does. I think so. Yeah. So it's effectively, it's all, I'm gonna use this term, and it's possibly a little bit wrong, but it's like it's a language you will use to format data. It's a structural language. It's a structure you're providing. But the important bit is there's this thing called JSON which you use to make the visual on your card different and the data you gather different. And that's what it seems to have given me first. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. When I asked that question, give me the steps, it's begun with the JSON, which the reason I dipped into that is because that's the bit that confuses me. So can we put the link to the adaptive card designer tool in chat? Was that the one that you've just popped in, Connor, a little bit?
Yeah, it should be just up the chat. It's adaptivecards.io, and everything
that one there.
Really need to know.
Oh yeah. You mean this one, don't you? Yeah, let me just pop it in again.
You've got the Explorer and you've got the Designer. The Explorer is a bit more kind of in depth as to what each of the elements of this JSON are doing. The Designer is more for, you know, what stuff does and you just want to see how it looks.
Yeah.
So from a learning perspective, I think the /Explorer is the better option, and then the Designer is right. Okay, I now know what the JSON's doing. I want to implement this, but I want to see what my adaptive card is going to look like before I actually go and start creating and building it.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Connor. So yeah, I don't want to dwell too much on this bit to start with, because some people will be really comfortable with that concept. I just know that I've got to format something in a particular way using this language called JSON. And we'll dig into these links in a minute. Actually, that might be quite good to just go and play with. But what I'm going to use that somewhere in Power Automate. And again, could I just get a yes or no for the people in chat on either YouTube or in Teams? Are you familiar with Power Automate? Because that will determine what I'll sort of explore in my head. Excellent. Yeah, so most people probably are. You probably come at this with some, the reason you've come here is because you're like, well, I know Power Automate, I know it's got triggers and actions and I can do all that stuff, but I want to play around with this. So, right. So I know it's going to want me to format some stuff in JSON. Okay, great. I've got some tools there, but this is really interesting, isn't it? So this is why I find it just like fantastic. So start your flow, choose a trigger. It could be manual or another trigger. Okay, that's dead easy. Send an adaptive card. So I'm going to go into it. It's already told me the action I'm looking for. Post a card to a Teams user and wait for response. Okay, specify the recipient. Paste the JSON. Okay, so paste effectively what it is you want to send. We'll use this one actually. Capture the response. Yeah, my go-to would be to just temporarily capture everything in a compose, which is cool because you can expose it. There is a thing that I might play around with that I'm just aware of through something else, which is the parse JSON. I don't know if we'll need that, but we'll piddle around with that one and then do some more stuff. Well, that sounds easy, right? If you were advising me, Connor, is that what you would probably do?
So yeah, I mean, I've always, especially when learning brand new things and never having built something like this before, I tried to start with the most simplest use case I could think of, and that's just to make sure I can get something on a screen. That always seems to be the case. So for me, I would probably start with a manual flow with no real kind of trigger. It's just manually triggered when you choose to, which then just sends a user an adaptive card, and then I can just go and start that flow whenever I like and just make sure that works.
Let's do that thing. I agree with you. I think it's the Hello World example, isn't it? Really, it's like do the simplest thing. I was going to try and keep this on screen, but I'm really conscious then that anybody who wants to follow this or like play around with it, you're going to really struggle to see my screen if I do that. So I'm just going to go and do the steps, but I'll keep going back to it so you can have a look. So make.powerautomate.com. I had in my head they were changing those URLs, but they haven't, and I know they've changed some of the service URLs in the back end, but don't see. I thought
it's just the service URLs that they changed,
isn't it? Yeah,
because they've moved everything to, I think it's cloud.powerplatform now or something or other.
Okay, let's go and create. So as you say, let's just do an instant Cloudflow. I'm going to skip that because I don't need to do that. I always skip it. I'm going to call this adaptive card. Adaptive card. Part 1. Flow button. Have you ever used a flow button like in a real? Have you ever used that action other than to trigger a manual flow like I'm doing?
I have.
Oh, have you? What did you use it for?
So I can't remember the use case that I used it for. I think it was I used it for an automatic number generator.
Oh yeah.
What I was able to do was I was able to specify an input, 2 input variables inside of this inside of the trigger to determine the minimum number and the maximum number, and then using those two numbers from the trigger, I was able to then run a calculation which gave me a random number between those 2 numbers. I think it was for some prize draw that we did going back a couple of months.
You did, yeah, I remember now. Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Actually, I think you're probably right in so much as these things probably exist all over the place that we're just not aware of. I can't spell either. Let's just change that. Let's just zoom up a little bit. I know ChatGPT has given me, let's just pop it over here. It's given me the name of the action I need to start with, but this was where my head instantly went. If I did not know that, I'd often just type the word that I'm after. And okay, so either way gets you there. Post adaptive card and wait for response. Should we what else have we got? Let's just have a look. Adaptive. I noticed this the other day, actually. These are just third party. Card platform feels like it's a third party option.
Yeah, it will be.
It will be, won't it? Yeah, let's not go there. Let's go back here. Adaptive. Right, so what have we got? We've got post and wait.
Adaptive card and wait for a response, I think, is something that we would probably want to use.
Yeah, it's the only one we've got, isn't it? Let's just have a quick look into Teams again, just a quick check. Post and wait.
Just while you're here, it's just important to point out as well that even though you've got these other ones, so you've got like reply with an adaptive card and update with an adaptive card. I think the whole idea of waiting for a response is very good because it means that whatever information people reply with inside of that adaptive card with the controls that we've given them will be then surfaceable as dynamic content within our flow. Meaning that if you send somebody an adaptive card and you say, what is your name? And they have a text input box on that adaptive card and they go, Connor, and they send it back. It means that it's going to come back as dynamic content. It's not going to come back with Connor. It's going to come back as dynamic content as part of our flow. However, when that flow runs, because of the run case that is used, Connor will be returned inside of that dynamic content. But it means that this flow then could be used for multiple scenarios, and we can return dynamic content based on what the user inputs into an adaptive card.
Yeah, which I'm going to assume is the most likely use case for reaching for this. I think again, as I said in the bio, just because you can doesn't mean you should. There's many ways to solve problems with Microsoft 365, and I think that's where people fall over. They get overwhelmed. But But yeah, when you want to do this particular thing to get that instantaneous response, the fact that you're getting the data straight back in a really portable fashion is helpful, isn't it? All right, so we've got some options here. I'm not going to post as Power Virtual Agents. I'll just post as the flow is doing this. Where do I want to post it? Let's have a look. What do we got? I want to post it in a channel.
I believe we're on the post as, and I'm not sure. It's worth just quickly checking if you used to do custom value. Can you put an email address inside of here?
I'm going Power Apps, and I'm not sure I should be going Power Apps. That's wrong, isn't it?
completely different service there. Yeah, I wonder
email.
if you can actually type it directly into. Oh yeah, the email address of the user who triggered the flow.
Yeah, post as me. Well, let's try it, right? So I'm going to post this one as Adele. I've got another user I can flip over and have a look at.
I have a feeling it will require the email because it's trying to find a person here.
Okay.
Or some form of user that exists.
Okay. Well, tell you what, we'll try that. If that bit fails, we'll go back to the standard flow bot and then I'll come back to that example. But you're right, that could be quite cool because that could be where you set up your flow to send as Connor, get data back from whoever it is, and then, you know, as do the data as you want, but they know who it's come from and it's not anonymous and it doesn't look suspicious. I don't know how that's all going to work. Let's just. Well, that's interesting. See, that was not the case. Let's just do this. Bear me 1 second. You've broken me now, Connor. Flowbot, post in, channel. Interesting.
Yeah, it's worth exploring that. In fact, whilst you're doing this little bit of the build, I'll go and have a little.
Okay, yeah, you go and faff with that and see whether that is a thing that you can do, and then you can grab the screens. So I'll post as into a channel. Now that the message is the JSON, to my knowledge. That's what you put in there. That's what confused me when I first had a look at this action some months ago. I just wasn't sure. So do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to copy this JSON that it's given me as a good example, because then I know that if I can get some JSON to work, I can get any JSON to work. Let's pop it in, copy paste. Thanks for your response. So that looks like it's going to send an adaptive card as a text block. What's your name? The control it's going to give them as an input text with an ID, and it's going to say enter your name, and then there's going to be a submit button. So they all seem like controls that we're going to be getting just through that JSON language, which is pretty cool. So let's have a look. What teams have we got? Let me try and choose one that I know a bit about. Let's choose. Shouldn't really matter, but I'll try patient care. Tell you what I'm going to do now, I'm going to quickly go to another person on this dev tenant.
Just while you're doing that as well, so inside of that JSON, you probably saw, like John mentioned, there's a bunch of different controls that you have. With adaptive cards, you can post or publish more than just controls that a user can see as well. You can also do things obviously like text blocks, so you can display certain text within an adaptive card. But what's also really cool as well, you can actually perform actions from with an adaptive card as well. So I mean, this is probably going a little bit too deep, but essentially what you could do as an example of that is you could run or have somebody have the option to run a flow from an adaptive card. So yeah, you can do certain actions within a card as well.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Connor. While you were chatting there, what I just did, and again, it's something that you might find valuable, is because I've got two users on this developer tenant, I've got two different edge profiles, and I just swapped over to the second user there, logged in. It's a user called Diego, and I just checked that he has channels so we can test this, because rather than send it to Connor, because Connor's Teams chat is just full of like free vouchers and gaming talk, so we don't want to go on to Connor's chat. It isn't. Anyway, right, so I mean that should be enough, right, to send an adaptive card to that channel. It's not to a specific person, but Diego should see it. Let me just see if there's any more steps that it thinks we should take. So we posted and adapted. It said wait for a response. That's fine. Recipient, we've sort of done that. That's the channel. This is where you have to be a bit you have to be a bit mindful of ChatGPT. It will give you steps like this, is really helpful, but you've got to be aware enough to not just copy it verbatim. Because if I were to specify the recipient, I might go over here and I might go, well, there is no recipient in my options. You just have to be aware that you put your context onto it. And also it is getting data from 2021, which is a bit old. It's a bit like me. It's a bit out of date. Capture the response. Well, I don't need to worry about that for now. I'm just going to do it. Should we give it a go?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to test it manually. Test. Oh, yes. Okay. So it signed me into Teams, which it will always do as Adele Vance. Yeah, I'm glad you like that. I just thought for something like this, it's just quite nice to have a bit more of a few more brains on it. We won't always do live streams with two of us. If it's a topic I'm quite comfortable in, I'll probably do it myself and vice versa with Connor. But for something like this, where we're both on a bit of a learning journey, it's quite nice, I think. So that's running. So you can see there, it's started. It's waiting for a response. So let's go and have a look over in my general. There we go. So that's the simplest use case. What is your name? Oh, do you know what? I'm just going to put Batman because it's that kind of day. My name is Batman. So you saw there, I've got an input button, and these are all the things I configured in that adaptive card. I've not had to click anywhere. I've not had to go anywhere. It was done. I believe that I could have also done that in an email in my tenant. I won't do that, but it's just the same interface really. So let's go back to our flow. This worked. Okay, great. So you can see here, let's have a look what we've got. Fine. So it's given me the respondent, their email address. If you ever want to communicate with Diego, he has his own email address. He's not very responsive because he doesn't actually exist. But that's quite nice. I got my response back. So what I could do, this is what you were talking about, wasn't it, Connor? Was I could now, what am I doing? New step. Stick a piece of data from that adaptive card in. It's dynamic content, isn't it?
Yes.
Splendid. So when we've done this, there's a thing I'd like to look at, and there's a question that came up in chat before everyone joined, was about how do you get used to like restructuring your JSON so that the right pieces of data are in the right places? We might have a little tinker with that. So let's have a look what we've got. So this is the post adaptive card action, and we've got all this lovely modular data. What would we want? So that's the responder. So I'd know who's responded. That's fine. Where
So
would you
the data is, I believe, what comes back from your response from your adaptive card. So the way that this would work is, for example, we can do a quick demonstration. If you just go and add the data in there as it is, and then you go and do that test again.
Okay.
What's essentially going to happen here is I don't believe that you are going to get just Batman come back. I think what's going to happen is it's going to wrap it inside of that JSON format. And then this is where I believe what you were talking about earlier in terms of the parsed JSON will come in place. So at the moment, data could be multiple things. So you can see that, yeah, that's wrapped inside of a table column format there, where we're saying that the username is Batman.
So
However,
that's the column there, isn't it? So it's column, and the data in that column is Batman.
So yeah, this is where parsed JSON is going to be able to come into this. So what you would do is you just need to go back to where you were.
Sorry, yes, I'm jumping ahead there, Connor. Go on. Yes, I'll go back to the run of it. Let's just come out of there.
Yep. And if you just open up that compose, and if you just copy the input or the output, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, they're the same, aren't they? Yeah.
Yep. And then if you then go and edit this this Power Automate flow, what's going to happen is you can do a parsed JSON, and it's going to ask for schema. So the kind of what to expect as part of your data. So if we do a parse JSON, and then the content is going to be the output of that. That's fine.
Compose. And
then
this
if you
is
paste
your
schema in there, and then if you just go and do save, I believe you have to run this once before you can actually get the dynamic content. So if you just go and run this as it is now.
Yeah, that would make sense, I think. Right, so
So like I say, all of our data at the moment is formatted in that weird way. We're not just getting the word Batman come back. Now, if we go and open that and look at the outputs, so yeah, the output is now coming back as Batman. So if we go and edit this, and let's add another compose just for the sake of demonstration.
I always put components. I don't know why. I have words that I don't type in the right order.
If you just scroll down your page, because your camera's sitting over the top, John.
Yes, it is. Sorry, thank you, Connor.
What you'll see is we've got
move me over there.
We've got the body, which is what we have by default, but we also have down that username, so it's recognized that as a field inside of our JSON that we have. So if we go and pop that username in and press save and now go run this, we should, if my logic is correct, we should just have the word Batman come back in our compose too. So that's the kind of
where
use.
It's really, because of that format, you get a lot more control, right? That's what you just demonstrated.
Because at the moment, obviously, we've only got one text input box, which is username. But say, for example, we wanted an email and we wanted loads of other info. You wanted to produce a form in terms of in the sense of an adaptive card. You wanted to produce a form in terms of in the sense of an adaptive card, where it was full name, email address, date of birth, and then you wanted to go and put that information into a SharePoint list, for example, to fill out 3 columns. Without the parse JSON, you're not going to be able to separate it easily individually. The only way to do it is parse JSON, and then that way you can get the first name, last name, email address, date of birth, and populate, and then just basically go and say, okay, go and update records inside a SharePoint with these values. And that's kind of the way that parse JSON works.
Yeah, and I guess that's really nice when we go back to that original use case, because you've gone that extra step, because of the formatting for that data. You've gone that extra step. It then becomes dynamic content. You can then use it as input to another dynamic adaptive card. I'll say dynamic card then. So I could now go back to that channel and say to another channel, do you approve Batman to be a member of the team? So you could use it as a bit of an onboarding flow, couldn't you, as well? That's really nice, Connor. Yeah, I like that tip. So that's what the parse I've always wondered what the parse JSON action is really there for, but that's what it is. It's kind of turning your raw data into something which is actionable and usable.
All it's doing is literally just grabbing each column and response and then separating those values out into essentially variables that sit inside of Power Automate that we can then use to create our flows.
Yeah, and that didn't seem too complex as a process, so I could just repeat that ad infinitum, couldn't I?
Yeah, you could add another input. So I mean, we could give it a go if you like.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
If we go back to our post adaptive card and wait for a response.
Yeah.
Just open it up.
Oh, this. Yeah.
And then we could just go and add additional things to our schema here. So you can see that we've got an input text there for the usernames. What we'll do is we'll come below placeholder, or we could just copy it. That's fine. And we'll paste that underneath because we don't want to place it outside of the schema. So we'll add a comma to the end of that where your cursor is now.
Yeah, sorry, I'm looking at something here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because it might be hard to see. So I'm learning as we go a little bit here. So these square brackets denote almost chunks of this JSON then, and within that you've got your columns.
Yeah. So square brackets are basically saying that you have an array of things or objects inside. And then the curly brackets that you're seeing are essentially defining a table structure within that array. So you're basically saying that you've got an array of information, and for the first record of information inside that array, I'm going to have a text block which says what is your name, and that's two different values, but it's part of the same kind of type of information. And then we're adding a second block underneath, which is the input text. So it's all kind of sat as part of that array. It all belongs to the same part there. So what you could do is essentially, I think you've got a bit of a syntax thing going on. But,
well, no, so deliberately, because this is a thing that I've done this deliberately, Connor. A thing that I find really awkward with JSON is that when you start doing stuff yourself, it can, unless you're very, very familiar with it, it can get wrong quite quickly and quite easily. So you spotted that straight away, right? One of the things that I think could be quite useful, I'm going to try this. So don't tell me what the syntax problem is. I'm going to ask ChatGPT to correct this JSON for me. In fact, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do this because I just don't know whether it's good enough to help me in this context. I'm always looking for like helpful tips, and JSON I always get wrong. So let's pull this back over here.
Funny you say that. I have used ChatGPT to fix code.
Yeah, well, I want to see if it works.
Very, very powerful. The amount of syntax issues it's solved me, even in really complex. I think I put about 200 lines of code into it once. Said, can you fix this because I've got a compiler error in my IDE, and it went and solved it. And it would have taken me hours to figure out what it was without it.
Yeah. So you've just seen a strange little nuance I've got. I do this with Alexa. I ask Alexa and I say please at the end. I don't know why. But can you update this JSON for me, please? So I know there's some problems in that. So let's just see what it does with it. It looks like there is an issue because it speaks like that.
So yeah, it's depicted out what the that you got square braces and curly braces issues going on there.
Oh, see, I like that as well. It's removed the misplaced and replaced it with that. Change the ID to user role to avoid duplicate ID. See, I didn't even ask it that. I mean, I love that. That's so cool. So I'm going to try now and copy that back. Now, I don't remember seeing this.
That was at the bottom, yeah.
Was it? Okay, good.
It is.
I'm just going to quickly divert over to the chat with a couple of quick questions there. Assuming you have the paid version of ChatGPT. So I think I'm going to try not to mention people's names. I believe it can. You can do this with Bing. Let's just test it. So I mean, this uses GPT-3, which is at 3.5 probably now, which is as an engine is slightly less powerful. However, for stuff like this, fix this JSON. See, I'm getting a bit blunt with it now. I'm a bit fed up with it. See what it does. This is the free version you see on the right hand side. I know we're not a ChatGPT live stream, but this is just useful stuff for because most of us are like me and Connor. We work largely on our own.
Just to submit, I've just seen in chat as well. It says, so where does markup language show as well? And I'm assuming what you mean by markup is kind of like rich text. Is that sort of thing that we're talking about there?
There is markup in the context. Where was I using markup? In Power Automate, there is a markup language, isn't it? No, it's markdown language. Sorry, markdown, isn't it?
So yeah, if you wanted to do things like say that text is bold, or you want it to be center aligned and stuff like that, you can do. It's the same way that that you would use in CSS, because essentially CSS is, anyone that's done any kind of web design stuff, CSS is actually JSON. That's all it really is when you actually look at the structure of it, with a few HTML wrappers, but that's essentially the way CSS works.
That's interesting. Yeah, thanks, Connor. Yeah, so if it is Markdown that we're talking about, there is a syntax for Markdown that you can use in Power Automate. You can use it specifically in the comment. There are specific fields in the approval action. We are a bit of a tangent here, but there are specific items in there that you can use Markdown and it's things like the pipe symbol. There's a reference card for it somewhere that I can dig out, but this is slightly different. We'll come on to this idea of formatting shortly. You can probably use the two in combination. So we'll come on to that in a little bit. Because I can only hold, as you know, if you ever watched me, I can only hold like one thing in my head at once. So to answer the question, does the free thing do it for you? I think it does. I think we've got it. It's given me a less pretty answer. Like this is really quite full, but I think you can do it either way. So let's just go here. Let's copy that. Let's go to Adele. I'm going to correct it. Was that what you wanted to have in here, Connor, or are the changes you want me to make?
So I'm just
That looks
having a
right
look
to me
at
now.
what we have.
Oh, also
Yeah.
another tip. I got this last week. JSON Beautifier. I've added it. It's an extension. Now I haven't used it, but there's another thing you can use. That's all I'm going to say because I don't quite know how to use it yet.
Just on that note, there is a bunch of formatting tools that you can that I think are run by the same company. You've got things like JSON formatters, you've got HTML formatters as well, where you can paste HTML in and it'll show you what it looks like. There's a bunch of them that are really kind of useful, and there's ones also out there that will give you the correct indentation as well to make things easily readable. So if somebody just sends you a notepad full of just one line of loads of formula, it will format that into multiple lines for you as well.
Nice. Yeah, they're really useful things to get used to using, aren't they? And you know that this is the world that we're going into now. People get afraid of, oh, AI is going to take my job. I'm going to be out of a job. Well, I mean, like maybe in the future we won't be needed. It will write its own code and you just talk to it. But I'm all right with that because I still have a brain that thinks logically and has context and understands budgets and understands the constraints of the world around me. What I'm showing here is that we don't have to be too afraid of it. We can use it to solve problems that I would genuinely spend an hour or two poking through that going, where's my problem? It's just found it for me, assuming it's correct. Sorry, Connor, what did we want to do next? Let's go into that.
So you've just added let's just open it back up so I can see what we've got here. So we've got text block, which is asking us for our name. It's just a bit of text. An input text label, which is asking for a username. And we've got a input text for our role again as well. So it's just we should expect two text boxes now on our I mean, the only thing that you're really missing is another text box to make that look a little interesting, because at the moment, I believe you're not going to see any questions to that second box, but we can test it out. So the first box is going to ask you, what is your name? And we're given a placeholder for enter your name here, whereas we're not actually asking any question.
Yeah, we're not. You're correct. So I need another text block, don't I? Yes, I do.
Yeah, and again, this this should be careful with it. Fine.
Right, so this time I'm going to be more careful. So enter your name. Let's just. So again, I mean, does that matter? I don't think it matters as long as we've got the comma, then the open bracket.
So again, this is another misconception about writing lines of code as well. So in most, I'm going to say most, in most languages that you write things in, JSON also being one of them, I believe it doesn't matter as to what I'm going to call empty spaces. If you've got spaces and tabs and all that sort of stuff, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't read any of that as actual binary information, which is
just our need for order, isn't it? It's our well, especially my inherent need for a little bit of neatness.
I think what it is that as people have developed, they've kind of come up with how things should look, and it's just how people have adopted it. I think more so it's not actually needed as such. However, if you was to pass this on to a developer, they would probably get very frustrated and angry with you.
I think that's it. I think I've been there before. For anybody who doesn't know the history, Mark and myself used to work together. Mark Jones, the CEO of the business, probably 20 years ago now, at a business in the UK called the Halifax Building Society. And I wrote an ASP page, It was VB6 and ASP, not ASP.NET, but ASP, that deduplicated user records for a banking system. And him being the poor person who inherited it after me as I moved on to testing roles and management roles, he loves his code. He got it, and I think he did what you've just described there, Connor. He went, "Oh, mate, what is that mess?" and instantly set about making it. I think he quoted me. He said, "I've made it something like 1,000 times more performant just by restructuring your language, just because of the way it was at the time." Anyway, I digressed. But like, so I've just copy and pasted some. I think I've done it anyway. Have I? Did I?
I think you've got another syntax error, but we'll see it when you try and run it.
I've done it deliberately because what I wanted to do before we run this next one was I wanted to add a different type of control. And what I was going to do was do this, I think. Yes, I was. And I'm going to get rid of that. So what I wanted to do we have a reference card anywhere for the type of controls?
So yeah, we've got a number of things that we can do. We can add text input boxes, which is input.text as part of our type, which we've obviously already got 2 of here. We can add numbers. So you can do input.number.
What choice? That's what I want. Is there a choice?
There is a choice and there is a choice set.
Choice set. Oh, okay. That's interesting.
If you're using choices, you can basically determine what those choices actually are. If you're using a choice set, I believe it's multiple select. So we can go with input.choice for now.
Yeah, I'm following through my logic now, because what I would like to do is actually fix. I think I've just obliterated a few bits. So let's just follow this through. So text block, which is just pure text. What's your name? Right, fine. Input text. What's your name? What I want now is a text block which says, "Are you feeling happy?" Could be any question that you're going to ask somebody. So I think I have to create the space. That's what I did. I think I obliterated. So enter your name, text block. Are you happy? Again, I don't know why I put capitals. It's so stupid. Are you happy? Remembering the semicolon. Then I'm going to give it let's just get rid of that for now, an input choice. See what that is. Now, this is the bit that I'm not. Have we got a reference anywhere for what the structure should be? So input.choice, ID, user happy. How do we write this?
You should have a title, and you should have a value. They are your properties for an input choice.
Title.
So you don't need an ID for this one.
You don't. Okay, cool. So it seems that the column is in quotes, then the colon. It is a colon, isn't it? And then
that's a comma.
This bit. Sorry, let me just show you what I'm looking at. This bit here. So quote, my column, in quotes, colon. So we don't need ID for this one. Okay, so title, are you happy? So I don't need a text block potentially for this one. Potentially.
No, however, you do need to specify what the choices are.
Yes, that's the bit I'm looking for. So what would that be? Where would we put that?
So they call this the value.
So I'm deliberately leaving it scruffy. I assume it's something like yes, pipe, no, or something, I'm guessing.
So the way that they say on here is the raw value for the choice. It says do not use a comma in the value, since a choice set with is multi-select set to true returns a comma delimited string of choice values. So I would guess, now this is in the way that you've just done it there, in terms of, however, I would probably put all the choices on one line, so I wouldn't have 2 values.
So you think yes in quotes, no in quotes.
Yeah.
We can also test ChatGPT if we choose to. So like this, essentially. That feels wrong to me. That
yes,
feels
but with a comma between them.
A comma between them. Okay, all right.
And then I believe That should work. Let's give it a test.
Yeah. So what's your name? Enter your name. Are you happy? Let me get rid of all this bump down here because I've yeah, I want to get rid of that one. I don't need that one. So that's the end of that should, and I think I need to get rid of that. That should just be 2 questions. Let's give it a go. And what we'll do is we'll do that and we'll take a quick pause after that. Who thinks this is going to work?
I
Yeah,
think
yes.
it's going to fail.
Yeah. Oh. Let's just go with the same. It doesn't really matter whether I do it manually or with the same data. It's still asking for a response. So run flow.
Need to press done.
Yes. Flow failed. So what did we do wrong?
So it says what? So we've got body, and it's the 3rd item in the array of the body at line 21.
So you're looking here, aren't you, for those that are following the screen? So invalid character. Okay, expected that, but got that. Okay, that's easy to fix. So yeah, so we could.
So everything within the body, we're looking for the 3rd item in the array.
That's the first, that's the second, that's the third there. It's before that last one.
Yes, so I'm just taking a look at what we have.
Second. Sometimes it will tell you it's the thing before the thing that's wrong, I believe. Yeah. I've got a funny feeling it's this.
I believe it's part of your value that is wrong.
Yeah, I do.
So let's just try with just one value in. So we'll get rid of the no and the comma, and we'll just give that a try.
Okay.
Just a little note. You don't need to save before testing because testing will ask you to save it anyway.
Shout. Force a habit, isn't it? You get into these habits. Yeah, so again, it's failed.
So what we got
Bad
here?
syntax. Payload is incorrect. Okay. It's probably just a general format error, isn't it, that?
Yes. So let's have a look at.
I'm just going to go, while you do that, let's do a call it a speed test. I'm going to go and ask ChatGPT what's wrong. Oops, a daisy. Whoa, what did I do there? I'm going to go and ask ChatGPT to fix it for me. Because I'm lazy.
Yeah, I have a feeling that we might be using our idea of choices in the wrong way here.
I think you're probably right.
I think that what we would want to use is a choice set, which is a little bit more complex, as each value needs to be put inside of an array to do that.
String, are you happy the JSON strings cannot span? So it thinks there's a problem in there. Okay. Input choice usually has a choices array property.
Yeah, that's what I was just talking about then.
There you go. Yeah, so it's the format was entirely wrong. Let me just zoom in on that.
Okay, so yeah, so we need. Okay, I think I get what's going on here. So should we take a break? And then we can come back and fix this. So it makes perfect sense actually what I'm seeing there now.
Okay, cool. Let's take a quick pause, quick bio break, and we'll come back and we'll stick that into the Power Automate and we'll get that running. And that'll probably be about as far as we'll get today. A break to fix a break, yeah. Also, my son is at the front door, so I need to go and let him in.
Cool.
Be right back.
Should we say 1:15?
Yeah, 1:15. See you soon.
Okay, awesome.
Bye. I got trigger happy. I always do. I'm going to try and beat Connor before he comes back. I got trigger happy, as you can see on the screen. I just copied and pasted the corrected JSON. It was talking about the formatting, and I think that for me, that's going to be a go-to for me. Is I'll go and ask a tool to reformat my JSON for me. But the fact that it's not only corrected it, but it's done this little bit here, I think is fantastic. So this was the problem we had. We were using choices. So it's a choice set. And what we've done there, to Connor's point about the square brackets, is we've then defined an array within which we have the different choices effectively. So that's what that square bracket's doing. So it's the choice set, give it a name, and then each of the choices options you put within the array, and that's how you structure it. So I'll just zoom in a little bit so you can see that. But that is the difference. So square bracket, then you've got your columns, you've got a title and the value. So what is the yes option called and what does it display? What's it called? What's it display? And then you go on and see. So to answer a question that came up at the very start, the way you order the data that you want to put in, for example, if you had a whole bunch of SharePoint columns, all you would do was you would use this column structure. You would say, all right, the first thing I'm going to give you is called column 1. Maybe it's a display, so you might just put the dynamic content here. I assume you can do that and include dynamic content in the values that you're giving to people and receiving. So you just structure it like this. So you just have these curly brackets to structure the data. Let's give it a test. I know I'm a bit early back, so apologies if I beat anybody back. I beat Connor back. Sorry, mate. I was just sharing that I literally copied and pasted, but it makes complete sense, doesn't it? You look at this, you've got an array of options, basically.
Yeah.
So I know this works because I just tested it. Right, test. I love stuff like this. The fact that I probably wouldn't have spotted that, I would have spent a bit of time Googling. I didn't have to Google, I just copied and pasted and said, what's wrong with this? And GPT said, yeah, it's that. You've done that wrong. So this is what it looks like. So, John, are you happy? Yes, I'm always happy. I'm a happy person, unless I'm unhappy. There we go. So that was nice. Now, the benefit here, you mentioned this earlier, Connor, is that we've now got two. If we were to do another compose, we've got two pieces of data we can just play with.
Yep.
I got my happiness choice and I got my username. Should we just do that? I'll just do that. Bear with me. I'm going to go on mute because my son has now arrived home. No, he hasn't. Have you got one of these Ring doorbells, Connor?
No, I don't need one because I live on
You
a top floor flat anyway. So
And nobody likes you. They don't come and visit
for
you.
anybody to get outside my house, they need to be able access to the building anyway.
Yeah, I suppose they would. Yeah. Yeah, we get Amazon deliveries, and because I'm up in, I live in a shed at the top of the garden. I don't live here, but I work here. We use the Ring doorbell. Anyway, I digress. Edit. As a new compose. Composed past JSON.
You'll need to pass the JSON again with the correct schema because you've added a value inside of the JSON now.
Yes, thank you. So what I'll do is I'll go and get that run that I just did. Let's just do a save just in case I've been playing with anything. Don't know what I've done. Yeah, okay, all right. Delete.
Blank compose.
Yeah, that's a blank entry. La 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 la. Save. Go and get the new schema. You are quite correct. Stuff like that catches me out. You change the schema, you got to go and re-add the schema to your past JSON. Where am I? I want to be. What am I doing? It's the compose, the post adaptive. Blah, 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 blah. It's this, isn't it? It's that I want. I want to get an example of the output that it needs to understand for the future. That's what my brain's just told me I need. Okay. Ask
Now
Jason.
you should be given a happiness choice dynamic data that you can use.
Yes, that's what we're hoping for, isn't it? That should be it, shouldn't it? Right, new step.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can just
do
it like this where it has to run first, but I think
let's try it.
It should work.
Oh yeah, no, so you don't have to run it. Is once you've generated it, it seems to understand that it is going to expect said thing. I'm having to train myself not to press save now. Yeah, it doesn't really matter whether I use that or leave manual. Right, let's go to Diego. There it is. What's your name? Connor. Are you happy? Yes, because Connor's a happy person too.
I'm always happy.
Always happy. Well, would you look at that? That's taught me quite a lot about how these adaptive cards could be useful. It's the idea that you've got flexible controls, isn't it?
Yeah. Just wonder if I could take control, or can I just share my screen?
Yeah, whichever you'd prefer, Connor. You can have the control of this screen. Bear with me 1 second. Yeah, you carry on, Connor.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna take control of the screen. I've got to remember which screen it is. I'm sharing. I believe it's this one. There you go. So yeah, this is where that Explorer is really going to help you. So I mean, I was trying to do this on the fly as we were building this, but for those, if I can go back to it, for those that are wanting to build adaptive cards from the ground up, this is how you structure them. So you can see that if you remember that we had that text block at the beginning. So we were asking for the actual text itself, which was the string. Now you don't need to put all of this information into the schema. As long as they are, I believe, in order, it should be fine. But for example, we've got the type, which is the input, the input.text. Sorry, the input.text was the actual input that they wanted. The text box is just showing some information on the screen. So, for example, we had the question, which didn't have anything else. It was just text. It was just the question, which we were using the text block. And then what we were doing is we were using the input.text. And again, it shows you how to structure this out, where we were saying that the type needed to be this input.text. See, the description here must be input.text. Oh, didn't want that. Must be input.text. We have the ID, and then we was obviously giving it a value as well. I believe inside of that. I don't think we did give it a value, did we? I think that would be the default value. Yeah, the initial value for this build.
We might have done.
You don't need all of this information. I think it's the placeholder that we were using, which is the description of the input desired. Yeah, but like I say, you could say that that you want this to be a multiple line text input box. But it's important to note that there are other things that you can do. For example, if we wanted somebody to say, I don't know, what date did you book your holiday last week? Then we have the schema and everything needed to do this. So we'd use input date as the type, the ID would just give it a unique identifier. We could call this holiday date, for example. And then we could say that the placeholder is going to be the description of the input desired. So you'd basically say this is the date for your holiday or something or other. But essentially, yeah, that's going to place a date picker on their screen. But yeah, like I say, it's what's really cool is obviously we get results. We get the results back from this. But you can use this to build up your adaptive card. So you can see here that we've got that input date that if we wanted to add that, we could do, which is getting obviously the type. We've got the date here, which is the ID. Enter a date as the placeholder. And we've got a default value here as well, which should be automatically populated before the user actually picks it. But like I say, there's also the actions as well. So to actually submit, again, this is just going to submit that adaptive card, and it's going to allow us to then get a response back. We could open URLs. So we could say, for example, action.open URL as the type. We could give that as the title, and then we could also give it some dynamic content in here. So, for example, I don't know, say for example, we wanted to, if I go back to some of the LMS stuff that I've been doing, did you want to revisit the course that you've not completed in the last 24 hours? If so, then I can pass in a video URL, for example, and it'll take them to where they need to go. What's also really cool about URLs as well is with apps inside of Power Apps, they all have a definitive URL to use. So you could actually send somebody to a Power App screen.
Yeah.
Specifically for that scenario as well. So there's loads of use cases that you've got for this. So yeah, there's just a few. So we've got the actions and the inputs. We've got some of the other stuff as well. So if we want to put an image inside of those adaptive cards, we can do so. Any media, I'm presuming that we can do videos as well here. Yep, array of media sources to attempt to play. So you can display multiple sources in there. Yeah, it's worth having a look at this Explorer, because once you sort of wrap your head around the schema of JSON and how adaptive cards are structured, then this should become fairly easy to implement. I think awesome. the one to really pay attention to is the type, and making sure that you are including that type and making sure that you're following what this description is saying, because it must be certain values, and they all say I believe the same thing. Yeah, action set must be action set. So yeah, you are definitively saying what those types are.
I think just an observation about this kind of page, you often find these reference locations, don't you? You know, this Explorer is fantastic, and I completely agree with you. I think in combination with the ability to experiment and like put things together and then get potentially Bing or ChatGPT to correct it for you, that's quite a powerful learning tool for an employee, isn't it? They can go and see the art of the possible here. Sometimes if you're a bit like me, my brain will struggle with pages of tables telling me what the parameters are for different things, but I can get inspiration and know, well, there's a fact set, for example, go and explore it, and then maybe get an example given to me around that that use case, which is quite this tool along with ChatGPT, I think could be really useful if you go in that little bit beyond no code and low code, because I'd say this is a bit more after the low code area for me on the scale, if that makes sense. I really like that. Thank you, Connor.
Yeah, I was just trying to pull out the last thing. See, obviously the ID is obviously, again, if you're using this in a flow, the ID is probably the most important one that you want to remember, because this is what essentially becomes your dynamic content.
Yes.
So if you've got a value named my first name, then when you come to select your dynamic content later, after you've passed the JSON, it's this ID is what you'll be looking for. But yeah, there's
Can we stop saying pass the JSON, because all I hear is pass the duchy to the left hand side? I don't know why. It's a bit wrong, really, but it's just like, yeah, they need to come up with a better phrase for it. John's brain's gone wrong. I'm broken. Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you, Connor. Yeah, see, that's quite good. That try it for yourself. The designer's pretty handy, so you can play around with stuff and it'll generate it for you.
Yeah, you'll be able to see exactly what your adaptive card looks like here. So a great way, I mean, obviously you've seen us testing this directly inside of Power Automate, and we've seen what it looks like in Teams and stuff, but essentially you can do all of that from within this designer, and then once you're happy, you grab this JSON that you're seeing at the bottom, and you just paste this in, and it will just work.
Yeah, it's things like that that's really helpful, I think, for people just getting into this space. You know, where the requirements or the needs been set sufficiently that you start to reach for adaptive cards. You're like, where do I look? Here is a great example.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've just noticed with this as well, just having a little play around with this.
You're generating the card, and it's generating the card JSON for you as you. Oh, that's
yeah,
brilliant.
It's not the other way around, which is really nice. So if I wanted to add that text input date, I could just go.
Oh, that's awesome. That's what I was looking for earlier. Yeah.
With a text block here, and I want this text block there should be a way to say it. Let's go that I want the text to be date of birth. And
Why
then
didn't
I
we
can,
start there, Connor? That's a really good place to begin. Go and
yeah,
design it, cut and paste your JSON.
and then I say that I want my input, the date here. We could set a minimum value if we chose to, a maximum value. I can just leave it as it is. You can see that's just gone straight into here. We've got the text block now, and we've got the text input date inside of here as well. Now I'm interested to see, because I'd expect to be able to get a result back from this. So I would need some form of ID around this. Now this is where you would set in here the ID. So I could say my date of birth, and then that ID, my date of birth, is what you would then use in dynamic content. So it's the, like I say, it's the ID that's important here.
So again, be a little bit careful of what you're getting through this designer, and just inspect it with a logical brain, knowing that ID is super important if you want to use it for Power Automate.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Look, that's interesting. Got a host app here, and you can select Microsoft Teams and see actually how it's going to look in Microsoft Teams, and any of the other any of the other places where it looks like you can embed an adaptive card. So it looks like you can also do this in Viva Connections. We've got some other Outlook actionable messages. This is one that we were talking about earlier.
That's what I want to explore tomorrow. Yeah.
So yeah, we can see exactly how things are displayed. You can see small mobile, so how it would look on Teams on a mobile device, how it would look on Teams on a tablet device, exactly the same. But yeah, we've got dark and light themes. I wonder if this is carried across as part of the JSON. I'd imagine it'd be at the top if it was, but it doesn't look like it.
Doesn't, does it? You know what we should do? So I want, so on my little notepad on the left hand side, there's two things I'd still like to explore. I'd like to explore making them more engaging, making adaptive cards more engaging, and I'd like to explore the Outlook interface and getting them external. So perhaps we could play around a bit further on that tomorrow. So not dig too deep now. That's your spoiler, your teaser for tomorrow, and we'll go and have a play.
This is some really cool stuff. And again, if you want some out of the box solutions that are built for you, you can come to the samples on this adaptivecards.io.
What I'm saying, Connor, is don't spoil all those for tomorrow.
Right.
I know you're desperate to, you found a new shiny tool. Let's play around with those tomorrow, because we are at the hour and a half, which is effectively my normal Thursday cutoff. Sorry to cut you off, Connor, but I'd like to cut you off, if that's okay.
It's pretty cool. I like this.
That is pretty cool, isn't it? Should we have a little tinker with that tomorrow? Because like what you can do, so here, how about this for tomorrow? We can come up with a use case, a real one, where I want to send, what kind of things have we got there? I want to send a food order via an adaptive card to somebody external, my accountant, to get them to approve that food order as an expense or something like that, you know?
I've got a better idea.
Oh, go on then.
So me and the family are away on holiday next month in August. We already know our flight numbers and all that sort of stuff. I wonder if I can send an email to all of the people coming on holiday with us, because they don't sit within our organization. And I wonder if I can get them to do something
that'd be cool. Yeah.
Regarding their flight. Obviously, I doubt that I'll be able to do it whilst we're on the live session tomorrow, but I can post a response as to what I got back from them.
Let's try it. We can use external emails that we've got. You can send it to Adele as one of your family, for example. Let's do that tomorrow. Then let's experiment with surfacing these things for valuable use cases and see where we go. If anybody in the chat, either on YouTube or in Teams, has got a use case that they want, Connor mostly, because he's better at this stuff than I will be when it gets to complex, to break, then let us know. I see a few people typing. I love that idea, Connor. I think that's fantastic.
Very interesting use case.
Shall we? I think I will. I'm going to take the screen back. Thank you for that, Connor. That's brilliant. Really interested and excited by that. Actually, I think that'd be a cool use case. I'll just reshare my screen. Take my own live stream back. I had a live stream hack then. So yeah, it is 30 past the hour, half past the hour. I normally run my live streams on Thursdays for about an hour 15, an hour 30. If it's something where we want to go deeper, we can run longer, but I'll probably stop there. We're going to revisit it, as you've just heard, tomorrow. What time do we go live tomorrow, Connor? 2:30?
2:30 tomorrow, so yeah. 1:30 UTC.
Yes, thank you. Yes. So just again to reiterate, we are going to consolidate the two streams down to one going forwards to make it easier for you to understand what's going on. So they are going to be, we'll pick the time and we'll stick to the time. What time is that in sunny California? So you'd have to give us
about 12 hours behind.
Yeah,
on the
I always
West
struggle.
Coast, I believe.
West Coast, isn't it? Yeah, of course it is. Yeah. Don't know. 1:30 UTC. If you Google what that is right now, or Bing it, or Yahoo it, whatever, we will be back. And also, if you look in the events, that gives you your local time that you can check, and you can also grab a reminder. Feels like you're 12 centuries behind.
So yeah, same time as today, but just add half an hour.
Add half an hour from your start time today. UTC right now, it is 2:36.
Yeah.
Yes, 2:36. So yeah, we'll come back onto this tomorrow. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you got questions in the meantime, you got thoughts, oh, do you know what? I wonder if these guys will just play around with this. Pop them into either this chat in Teams or on the YouTube channel. That's fine. You can do that as well. Or you can go to the event that probably brought you here in the first, so as a fly in my face in the first place, add a comment. Love seeing your interactions and your ideas, and we'll go and play with it. But thank you, 10:36 on the East Coast now. Yes, I won't try and do the maths. My brain's tired. But look, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Connor, for today. Really enjoyed having you on my stream, on our stream.
Yeah, it's been a bit different from the LMS stuff I've been so focused on this month.
Yeah, but seriously, if you've not signed up to that and you have a platinum plan, platinum subscription, definitely get yourself onto that. It's next Wednesday. The next Wednesday coming. It is at 1 p.m. UTC. It's 2 sets of 5 hours, isn't it? So it's that, and then a week after. Connor's been showing it to me, and I've been doing it, and it's fantastic. I can say hand on heart, I've been playing with Power Apps for quite a few years now, and I'm learning stuff which is really useful. So if you've not already signed up to it, definitely sign up to it. It's fantastic. You're going to get so much learning, basically, more than you'll know what to do with, hopefully. Anything else from yourself, Connor?
No, I was just reading Natalie's message there. She says, thank you so much. The session was really helped me with the current project. She was thinking of doing something similar to what you were talking about, maybe at the beginning of the week, about asking for additional information from an approval process. So yeah, I mean, that's again a really good use case for this.
It is. It is.
Yeah, it's something we potentially could look at tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah. I think that'd be a good one to try out.
She's given us a scenario here which we could even try and solve. So the scenario is the employee completes a self-certification sickness form. Responses are stored in list in HR team. Then we want the approver to arrange a return to work discussion and then answer 2 questions before approving. Without of the box approvals, there's only the 1 comments box, so couldn't do it.
Yes, there is exactly that. So you could do a start and wait for approval, then you could fire off 2 adaptive cards, and at the end of that you can action the approval probably, or there's all sorts of ways you could do it. Yeah, should we do that? I mean, that shouldn't take too long, he says. Yeah, we'll have a play with that tomorrow.
Awesome stuff.
Fantastic. Well, thanks ever so much, everybody. We will close the stream there, and I wish you a very good rest of your day. Take care now. See you all tomorrow, hopefully.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.